Many old people get irritated over small things, a misplaced item, a little noise, a small change in routine. To others, it feels like overreaction. You may think, why is this such a big deal? But for them, it does not feel small. There is something deeper happening. As people grow older, their tolerance for disturbance becomes lower, not because they want to be difficult, but because their system changes. The brain becomes more sensitive to stress. Even small disruptions can feel stronger than before. A sudden sound can feel sharp. A small change can feel uncomfortable. Things that were once easy to ignore now demand attention. This is not attitude. It is neurological. The aging brain processes stimulation differently. It takes longer to adjust, and it gets overwhelmed more easily. So irritation becomes a quick response, almost automatic. There is also something about control. As people age, many parts of life become less controllable. Health changes. Energy drops. Dependence increases. They cannot move as freely, cannot decide as quickly, so they hold tightly to what they can control. Their space, their routine, their small daily patterns. When something disturbs these patterns, it feels bigger than it looks, because it is not just about the event, it is about losing control. Again, let me ask you something. If your world slowly became smaller, would you not protect the little space you still have? That is what is happening. A small thing enters that space, and it feels like an invasion. So the reaction becomes strong, not because the thing is big, but because the space is small. There is also fatigue, physical and mental. Older people often feel tired more easily. Their body does not recover as fast. Their mind takes longer to process. So when something goes wrong, even a small thing, they do not have the same energy to stay calm and adjust. Irritation becomes the easier response, not the chosen one, but the available one. There is also repetition. Many older people experience the same small issues again and again. The same noise, the same mistake, the same interruption. Over time, this builds frustration. So when it happens again, the reaction is not just about that moment. It carries all the previous moments with it. That is why the reaction feels too big, because it is not one moment, it is many, stacked together. There is also something about feeling unheard. Older people often feel that their preferences are not taken seriously. They may say something once, and it gets ignored. They say it again, still ignored. So, when it happens again, irritation becomes louder, not just to express anger, but to finally be noticed, because calm requests did not work, so the tone changes. This is not just anger, it is a signal. I have been saying this, but no one is listening. There is also fear behind irritation, a quiet kind of fear. Fear of forgetting, fear of losing independence, fear of things slipping out of control. When something small goes wrong, it can trigger that fear, even if they don't say it. For example, losing a small item is not just about the item. It can feel like, my memory is getting worse. And that thought is uncomfortable. So irritation comes out first, because fear is harder to express. There is also a difference in pace. Older people move slower, think slower, process slower, but the world around them moves fast. When something changes quickly, it creates pressure. They need more time, more space, but they don't always get it. So irritation becomes a reaction to that pressure, almost like saying, slow down, even if those exact words are not spoken. There is also something about emotional accumulation. Over the years, people carry many experiences, some resolved, some not. Small irritations can connect to deeper emotional layers. A small mistake can trigger a much older feeling, not directly, but internally. So the reaction becomes stronger, because it is connected to more than just the present. There is also a loss of filters. With age, people sometimes become more direct. They say what they feel, without softening it as much. So irritation becomes more visible. not necessarily stronger, but less hidden. You see it clearly, because it is not being held back. There is also something very simple. Comfort becomes very important. Older people value peace, quiet, order, predictability. When something disturbs that, it feels like discomfort, and discomfort quickly turns into irritation, because peace is no longer easy to maintain. If you look closely, this behavior is not about being difficult. It is about adaptation. The mind and body are changing. The environment feels faster, less controllable, less stable, so reactions adjust. Irritation becomes a way to respond quickly to discomfort, to loss of control, to stress. And maybe, instead of asking, why are they reacting like this? A better question is, what feels big to them that looks small to me? Because in that answer, you will start to understand. As this pattern continues, something even more hidden starts to appear. Irritation is not always about the present moment. Sometimes, it is about everything that came before it. An older person may react strongly to a small mistake, but inside, they are not only seeing that mistake, they are feeling a pattern. This keeps happening. No one takes care. I have to say it again. These thoughts build slowly over time, not in one day, but through repetition. So when the moment comes again, the reaction carries weight from the past. That is why it feels sudden, but it is not sudden. It has been forming quietly. There is also something about emotional patience. When people are younger, they often have more emotional flexibility. They adjust quickly, they let things go easily. But with age, this flexibility becomes narrower, not completely gone, but reduced. So small irritations do not pass quickly. They stay longer, they feel heavier, and the response becomes sharper. This is not intentional. It is a change in emotional processing. There is also something about predictability. Older people rely heavily on routine. Same time, same place, same order. This creates stability. It reduces mental effort because the brain does not have to keep adjusting. When that routine breaks, even in a small way, it creates mental work, unexpected work, and that can feel exhausting. So irritation becomes a quick reaction to that disruption, almost like the mind saying, "Why did this change?" Not because change is bad, but because it requires energy, and energy is limited. There is also a deeper emotional layer, respect. Older people often become sensitive to how they are treated, not in a demanding way, but in a quiet, observant way. They notice tone, they notice behavior, they notice small signs of care or lack of it. So when something small goes wrong, it can feel like a sign of disrespect, even if that was not the intention. For example, if someone ignores a simple request, it may feel like, "My words don't matter," and that feeling can quickly turn into irritation, because respect becomes very important in later years. It is tied to dignity, to identity, to feeling valued. There is also something about independence. As people age, they slowly lose certain abilities. They may need help with small things, and even if help is available, it does not always feel comfortable, because needing help can feel like losing independence. So when something small goes wrong, it can highlight that feeling. I can't do this easily anymore. I have to depend on someone. This thought is often not spoken, but it exists, and irritation can come out instead, because it is easier to express anger than to express vulnerability. There is also something about accumulation of stress. Older people deal with many small stresses daily: health concerns, body discomfort, sleep issues, memory lapses. Each one may seem small on its own, but together, they create a constant background pressure. So when a new small problem appears, it adds to that pressure, and the reaction becomes stronger because the system is already full. It does not have much space left. There is also a shift in priorities. Older people do not want chaos. They want simplicity, calm, order. So anything that disturbs that feels unnecessary, even if it is normal, even if it is minor. It feels like an avoidable problem, and that thought creates irritation. Why is this happening? It didn't need to happen. There is also something about memory confidence. As memory becomes less reliable, people start depending more on structure, keeping things in place, following patterns. When something small changes, like an item not being where it should be, it creates doubt. Did I forget? Did I misplace it? This doubt feels uncomfortable because it touches a deeper fear. So irritation appears quickly, almost like a defense, pushing away that uncomfortable feeling. There is also something about communication gaps. Younger people often move fast, speak fast, decide fast. Older people process more slowly, so sometimes they feel left behind in conversations or decisions. When something goes wrong, it can feel like, they didn't think about me, they didn't include me, even if that was not the intention. And that feeling can turn into irritation because it touches belonging, being included, being considered. There is also emotional honesty. As people age, they often become less interested in hiding feelings. They express more directly, not to hurt, but because holding back feels unnecessary. So irritation shows more clearly. It is visible, not filtered, and that can make it seem stronger than it actually is. If you look at all these layers together, irritation is not just a reaction. It is a signal of discomfort, of fatigue, of feeling unheard, of losing control, of wanting stability. And maybe, instead of trying to stop the irritation, it helps to understand what it is trying to say. Because behind that sharp moment, there is often something quiet, something important, waiting to be seen. There is something even deeper behind this irritation, something that is rarely spoken. Sometimes, irritation is not about anger at all. It is about pain that has no place to go. Not physical pain, but emotional pressure that stays inside for too long. As people grow older, they talk less about their inner struggles, not because they don't have them, but because they feel others may not understand or may not have time, so they stay quiet. And when emotions stay quiet for too long, they do not disappear, they change form. They come out in small reactions, a sharp tone, a quick complaint, a sudden irritation. These moments may look small, but they carry deeper weight. There is also something about feeling invisible. Older people sometimes feel like they are no longer at the center of life. Decisions happen around them. Conversations move past them. People are busy with their own lives. And slowly, they start feeling less noticed. This is not always said out loud, but it is felt. So when a small thing goes wrong, the reaction becomes louder, not just about the issue, but about being seen again, even if through irritation, because even negative attention is still attention. It says, I am here. There is also something about loss of purpose. Earlier in life, people have clear roles, working, caring for family, making decisions. They feel needed. But as time passes, those roles reduce, and that can create a quiet emptiness, a feeling like, what is my role now? When purpose becomes unclear, small things start feeling bigger, because there are fewer big things to focus on. So attention naturally moves to what is present, daily details, small disruptions. And those small things begin to carry more emotional weight. There is also something about emotional memory. Older people remember how things used to be, how people behaved, how respect was shown, how routines were followed. So when present reality feels different, it creates a gap between then and now, and that gap can feel uncomfortable, even frustrating. So a small modern behavior can trigger a larger emotional reaction because it does not match their internal expectations. There is also something about fear of decline. This is very quiet, but very powerful. Older people become aware that their abilities are changing. Memory, strength, speed. Even if they do not talk about it, they feel it. So when something small goes wrong, it can feel like confirmation. I am not the same anymore. That thought is difficult, so irritation appears instead. because it is easier to express frustration than to face that fear directly. There is also something about lack of emotional outlet. Younger people release stress in many ways: work, social life, movement, distractions. Older people often have fewer outlets, more time alone, less activity, less variation, so emotions build up without release. And when a small trigger appears, that built-up emotion finds a way out. It may seem sudden, but it has been waiting. There is also something about being misunderstood. Older people often feel that others don't fully understand their experience, their pace, their discomfort, their needs. So when something small goes wrong and someone reacts casually, it can feel dismissive, like their experience is not important. And that feeling can quickly turn into irritation because it touches something deeper, the need to be understood. There is also something about time awareness. As people age, they become more aware of time passing, not in a stressful way, but in a real way. So when time is wasted on small problems, it feels more frustrating because time feels more limited. Even small delays, small inefficiencies can feel heavier, and that adds to irritation. There is also emotional honesty again. At this stage, many people stop pretending. They do not hide discomfort as much. They express it directly, sometimes sharply, but honestly. And this honesty can look like irritation, but often it is just unfiltered feeling. If you pause and look deeper, these moments of irritation are not random. They are messages, not always clear, but meaningful. Messages about discomfort, about change, about loss, about wanting stability, about wanting to feel valued. And maybe, instead of reacting to the irritation itself, it helps to listen behind it, because behind that sharp tone, there is often a quieter voice saying, "I am tired. I am overwhelmed. I want things to feel simple again. I want to feel understood." And in the final stage of this behavior, something very quiet becomes clear. Irritation is not the real problem. It is the surface. Underneath it, there is a mix of changes that are hard to put into words. Changes in the body, changes in the mind, changes in how the world feels, all happening slowly, but constantly. At this point in life, people are not trying to become more patient. They are trying to stay comfortable. That is the priority. Comfort in routine, comfort in space, comfort in how things happen. So when something small disturbs that comfort, the reaction comes quickly, not because they want conflict, but because they want peace back, as fast as possible. There is also something about emotional energy. Older people become very careful about where they use their energy. They do not want to spend it on unnecessary problems. So when something feels avoidable, they react strongly, almost like saying, "This didn't need to happen," because fixing small disruptions takes more effort than before, and that effort feels costly. There is also a deep desire for simplicity. After living through many years, many complications, many responsibilities, people naturally move towards simplicity. Fewer problems, fewer surprises, fewer adjustments. So anything that breaks that simplicity feels like a burden, even if it looks small. And that burden quickly turns into irritation. There is also something very human here, a need for dignity. Older people want to feel respected, not managed, not ignored, not treated like they don't understand. So when small things go wrong and others react casually, it can feel like their experience is being overlooked. And that touches dignity, which makes the reaction stronger. Because dignity is not a small thing. It is central. There is also a quiet awareness of limits. They know their patience is not endless. They know their energy is not the same. They know they cannot keep adjusting forever. So they start protecting themselves by reacting sooner, by expressing discomfort earlier. This may look like irritation, but in reality, it is self-protection. There is also something about wanting things to stay right, not perfect, but familiar, predictable, understandable, because when things stay consistent, life feels manageable. And when things become unpredictable, life feels harder. So even small disruptions can feel like cracks in that stability, and those cracks are uncomfortable. There is also a final emotional layer, a quiet mix of acceptance and resistance. Acceptance that life is changing, resistance to losing what still feels stable. These two exist together at the same time, and irritation often appears right at that intersection, where the person knows change is happening, but still wishes things stayed the same. If you look at it this way, irritation is not something to fight. It is something to understand, because it is not just about the moment. It is about everything behind the moment. The tiredness, the changes, the fears, the need for peace, the need to feel respected. And maybe when you see an older person get irritated over something small, instead of thinking, "Why are they making this big?" you can gently think, "What feels big to them right now?" Because that question changes how you see the reaction. It brings patience, it brings understanding, and sometimes that small shift in how you respond can reduce the irritation itself. Because in the end, most of these reactions are not asking for correction. They are asking for comfort, for a little patience, a little respect, a little calm. And when that is given, even quietly, something inside them softens, and the irritation slowly loses its weight.